Monster Hunter, a series spanning 6 generations of consoles, but only recently getting recognition by the public for its excellent design with the release of Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter World showed the mainstream player base high-resolution dragons, dinosaurs, and good boys, while also honoring the rigor cherished by veteran players. Now it's 2022, the next addition to the Monster Hunter franchise has come in the form of Monster Hunter Rise, and one question is on my mind. Is it better than World? So without further ado, welcome to the Moderately Outrageous Dinosaur channel, and let's dive into the analysis between Monster Hunter World and Rise. Before I start, let's set some ground rules. I want to make sure I've set out some kind of logical cadence for the discussion so that when I get down to the comments and I see someone say, "You have no idea what you're talking about," everyone knows that this is the correct opinion, which is also my own opinion. Or even worse, if someone said, "This argument sounds like it was written by a greatsword player." I know, but I can at least feel good knowing that we all approach the discussion with the same parameters. Rule 1! We are going to be breaking down both games based on the following categories: gameplay, music, visual design, and story. Rule 2! Our comparisons are going to be on the initial releases of the game. That means no King Ding Dong Elder Dragons from World, and no Valstrax and incremental Apexes from Rise. Rule 3! The only addendum to Rule 2 is going to be the inclusion of the 3 base Elder Dragons from Rise. That is Chameleos, Kushala Daora, and Teostra. And also the 3 base Elder Dragons from World, being Teostra, Kush, and Valhazak. I will be assigning points to a game based on whether they win the section or not. The section and their assigned point values are on the screen now. For example, whichever game wins the music section will get 2 points, while the loser will get nothing. In the event of a category tie, I will award both games the point. Now, you probably noticed that not every section is weighted equally. Gameplay will always be worth more points than any other category in one of these comparisons. We're playing video games, not reading a book or watching a movie. As such, the unique medium lever of gameplay is the most important piece of the puzzle. If you disagree with this decision, remember, I don't make the rules. I just write them down on the screen without any supervision. Now, the final point. If there is an overall point tie, I will put the vote up to the community to break said tie. If enough compelling arguments are made in contrast to my own opinion, and they persuade me otherwise from my initial verdict, I will do something unspeakable on YouTube. I will publicly admit defeat and say that you all are so much smarter than my moderately outrageous brain. I will post a revised comparison, and we all can laugh at how freaking stupid I am. That's the rules. Got it? Good. Okay, let's start with Section 1, the gameplay. The pride of Monster Hunter rides on the depth of its combat system, simultaneously engaging the player through intricate weaponry, while also infuriating the player by getting gibbed by a monkey who vomits lightning. Why am I so bad? The point is that gameplay is the focus of these series. Capcom keeps the moment-to-moment gameplay fresh through 2 different elements, namely monster variety and weapon choice. Let's start our analysis with monster variety. With the inclusion of Elder Dragons, Monster Hunter World released with 31 monsters. Of the 31 monsters, 16 were brand new monsters to the Monster Hunter series, such as a Dogoron and that good boy, Dodogama. This means that these monsters had brand new move patterns for players to learn and master, meaning that Monster Hunter World felt incredibly fresh on release. However, after a few dozen hunts, similarities in attack patterns were noticed across the new and old monsters. You see, Capcom also had the difficult challenge of building a few dozen new monster skeletons just to bring the Monster Hunter look forward into the modern console era. This led to some of the fights feeling incredibly samey, especially when you look at some of the fanged wyverns like the Great Gyros or the Great Jagras, or even your bird wyverns like the Puki or the Palumu. This means after the initial encounter luster wore off, you were left with some pretty samey feeling fights. Perhaps the most obvious example of retreading movesets is the Radabon with the Uragon, who share not only the same moveset, but appearance as well. Their models are exactly identical and take the same approach of running/rolling away from you just as you're about to get a fucking hit, Jesus. Again, Capcom needed to build a ton of new models, and it's not unheard of for a game to have some really similar feeling monsters, but since we're comparing Rise and World, how does Rise stack up in the retreading department? Including the core Elder Dragons of Chameleos, Kushala Daora, and Teostra, Monster Hunter Rise released with 39 different monsters. Of the 39 monsters, Rise introduced 9 brand new monsters to the series. Now, there are the trio of copy-paste Wyvern and the Baggy, the Azuchi, and the Rogi. You can treat each of these monsters effectively as a reskin of the same monster. I would also argue that Azuros and Lagombi have similar animations when they're violently flailing their limbs at you, but outside of these select few examples, I would argue that the monsters in Monster Hunter Rise behave in their own unique fashion. Spider Mommy's gonna behave differently from Roid Boy, who's going to behave differently from Aerial Lord of Asshole Mountain. More importantly, Rise took all of these new monsters and oftentimes expanded their movesets to throw off veteran players from their previous habits. Similar to adding new monsters, the expansion of an existing monster's move pool will increase the variety in the game and keep the core concept of role-playing as a monster proctologist fun. Of course, there are some monsters who haven't changed in a few years, like Tigrex and Rajang, but these guys already have what I would consider a perfect moveset. Their mannerisms encapsulate how Capcom envisioned their existence in the world to be, so what is there to change? To me, the encounter variety of Monster Hunter Rise outweighs the sheer volume of new monsters within World. On a hunt basis, you have to alter your approach based on the monster that you're going to be fighting. Moments of World felt like I would be fighting reskins of the same monster. This isn't to say that Monster Hunter World was bad, but objectively, there are just more monsters in Rise. So next, let's look at the second primary gameplay category in weapon variety. In some ways, this topic will be more nuanced than monster category. After all, both Rise and World have the exact same count of weapon types. However, there is one distinct difference between these games. Switch skills. The progenitor of switch skills would not be introduced until Iceborne, which is when the Claw Shot was introduced. This means that weapons in base Monster Hunter World had one distinct playstyle. One very good distinct playstyle, but still only one. Contrast that to Rise, where weapons often have multiple viable setups. Sure, oftentimes there's a meta setup, but the other skills have their use cases and provided a gameplay change-up so that you can continue to sit alone in your room beating up virtual dinosaurs. Comparing the weapon system in these two games is kind of like asking a toddler to fight Mike Tyson, or asking a greatsword player to do long division. It's just not fair. World definitely had more work to do prior to release, but this isn't some sympathetic gamer pity party. It's a cold, calculated, objective argument that I made up in my own head. We all know the adage, variety is the spice of life, and base Rise has way more variety than base World. So Monster Hunter Rise wins again. If this was a comparison of Monster Hunter Rise to Iceborne, I think we'd be having a very different conversation. In fact, I think in that scenario, Iceborne would take out Rise due to the volume of changes that it made. Let me know what you guys think about that comparison down in the comments. While the primary gameplay categories have been evaluated, I also want to comment on the in-game treadmills for both games. Monster Hunter World has you endlessly hunting down decorations, specifically attack, crit, and artillery decorations. Without these requisite decos, you could be left at some pretty incomplete points in your build. Oftentimes, I felt like I had zero control over what I could or could not get. Just hope that you get an investigation for the angriest dragon alive and pray to RNGesus. Rise took the treadmill and put it on your talisman, but gave you the ability to craft your decorations. This means that players can effectively achieve 90% of a complete build. This gives players infinitely more agency in their build crafting journey. I always know exactly what I need to hunt, and I know what I need in order to effectively progress my build. This is a phenomenal change from World to Rise. It may seem obvious, but from a gameplay perspective, Monster Hunter Rise is just a more developed game than World. It has more monsters, it has more gameplay variety, and I don't get absolutely bent over by RNGesus on attack deco rolls. Monster Hunter Rise takes gameplay. Now let's move on to the second category, visual design. Visual design is relatively difficult to dissect because it's largely a subjective preference. Both games' flagship monsters, Magnamalo and Nergigante, are incredible monsters to both see and fight. The settings of the colonial maritime world in Monster Hunter World and feudal Japan in Monster Hunter Rise are both excellent aesthetic choices. The introductory monster cutscenes from both games are good and add some spectacle to the monster you're about to hunt. I personally like the Monster Hunter Rise introductory cutscenes a little bit more because it ties into the Japanese influence of the game, with it being based on a traditional Japanese theater style. But I don't think it overwhelmingly outshines the effect of the world intro cutscenes. Really, the most objective thing to look at between these two games is how do they graphically look? With that being the only objective question, there is a clear-cut winner. Monster Hunter World is gorgeous. The texture qualities on monsters are gorgeous. The maps are sprawling and detailed. Now, that's not to say that Monster Hunter Rise isn't a pretty game, but it is limited by the capabilities of the console that it was released on. The Switch cannot give the same output of the Xbox One or the PS4 or some god-tier PC. With this being our only objective measurement, the point goes to Monster Hunter World. Now, onto the most painful category, the story. A good narrative can be the glue that holds together an entire game experience. It's the context of why we do what we do when we do it. Monster Hunter does not tell a good story. Ever. In fact, I'm pretty sure I know what weapon the story team plays with, and what their favorite flavor of adhesive is. Let's bang out a summary of each game's story real quick, and yes, I will be spoiling this fantastic story. In Monster Hunter World, you play as Hunter A743219 on their way to undisclosed new place. You meet the sentient meme machine before getting attacked by a monster. In Monster Hunter, how fucking novel. You later learn that the porcupine dragon is trying to be mean and get other monsters to be mean so that he can kill everyone. Or something. You get told that you're the only one who can kill this edgy reptile, so you pick Greatsword, cart 2 times trying to hit a true charge slash, and clear the hunt in 45 minutes, only to find out that there's another dragon that's even meaner than that dragon. But as a brave glue-eating organism, you strap your Greatsword back on and eventually win. Everyone's happy, now go farm attack decos until your eyes bleed. Now, contrast that to Monster Hunter Rise, where you play as some gorgeous bastard taking a nap before you're rudely woken up by this pair of destructive fan service ladies. The kawaii couple tell you to go talk to a big man who tells you to kill monsters. You do that. You come back to find out that the kimono killers are actually brainwashed by these body horror elder dragons. We do the illogical thing of trying to save them. Then you do save the terrible two from being mind controlled again by once again putting on your greatsword, carding 2 times, and telling all your friends that you were strategically trying to activate Fortify. Truly, no one will see through your cleverly disguised ruse. Don't both of these stories sound like masterfully crafted narratives? Truly, a modern marvel of storytelling. I will say this though, the characters from Monster Hunter World are infinitely better than the ones in Rise. I'm just saying, and this is a fact, the Dongo Girl was not in the critically acclaimed Monster Hunter movie. But you know who was? That's right, baby. Meowscular Chef is in that movie. Look at him in all of the CGI horror that is the Meowscular Chef. Ultimately, both stories are terrible, but objectively, the characters of World are more memorable, and the narrative is slightly more tied together. So, I'm handing the dub to Monster Hunter World. Regardless of who won though, we can't get our brain cells back from trying to comprehend this incomprehensible plot. Actually, I think we all would have saved brain cells if instead of trying to piece this narrative together, we just went down to the local supermarket, bought a pack of Sharpies, and sniffed them for about 24 hours. Now that we have effectively fumigated our frontal cortex, it's time to talk about our final category, which is a much more pleasant topic to talk about. That is the music. But before we get into this category, let's just take a quick second to pause and look at the current standings. Monster Hunter Rise is currently standing at 5 points with its victory in the gameplay department, while Monster Hunter World is standing at 3 points with victories in both visual design and story. That means if Monster Hunter World wins the music section, they will be tied, and you all will tell me that I'm stupid and how I did everything wrong, and vote for the winner in the comments below. Real high stakes game we've got going on here. Capcom may not know how to write a story, but they do know how to hire a composer. They must have put the Chargeblade players in charge of this part. The Monster Hunter World OST that you can buy off of Steam has 81 tracks spanning 3 discs, while the Monster Hunter Rise OST has 109 tracks spanning 4 discs. Does a 28-track difference make or break this section? No, that's not what makes the Monster Hunter music good. The signature of Monster Hunter music is the way that the music builds the magnitude of fighting a sentient bulldozer. Every monster theme is memorable and serves as a functional notification for the player that you are about to get railed. When you hear Magnamalo's theme play, you know that you're about to have some feline ass magic launched at you. Or if you hear Nergigante's theme played, you know you're going to whiff a Superman dive when he does his Giga Pin Missile attack. Since we're not going to be able to draw an objective difference in the functional implementation of monster themes, we should instead look at the tonal direction of each soundtrack. Let's do a simple test of comparing the introductory tracks of both Monster Hunter World and Rise. Monster Hunter World's theme is called Stars at Our Back. The song opens up very quietly. Chimes, a small set of strings. It's almost unnerving or unsure, which makes sense. Monster Hunter World is all about pioneering a new world. Then, around the 45-second mark, the rest of the orchestra enters with the song's melody. Once the melody hits, the following words come to mind: hope, inspiration, and boldness. What a fantastic way to open up this age of exploration into an unknown world. I mean, dang. I really hope Rise came to throw down because this is one of my favorite songs in Monster Hunter games, period. So, show me what you got, Rise. Monster Hunter Rise opens up with the Kamura song of Purification. It would be easy to write this song off as it doesn't immediately instill impassioned feelings of hope, inspiration, and boldness, but this is how I know Chargeblade players are in charge of the music direction. This song is so clever. Think about the way that every mission is written inside of Monster Hunter Rise. It's from the perspective of someone requesting protection in the village. The Rampage quests are literally a defense of the village from enraged monsters. This Song of Purification, this prayer by Hinoa, is the last piece of spiritual protection, a guardianship for the people of Kamura. The gentle request of a reprieve for battered souls. Tie this in with the strings and you feel the mysticism surrounding Kamura. It is the perfect song to introduce this newest addition to the franchise. Monster Hunter World takes a very direct approach, connecting music and theme together. Rise takes its time to weave melody and setting together. Neither way is better, just different. I cannot say that either game edges out the other from a musical perspective. The themes are all memorable. In addition to the functional properties of music in Monster Hunter games, the orchestration for both games is gorgeous and achieves its goal of telling a story. Music results in a tie. This brings our total to 7 points for Monster Hunter Rise and 5 points for Monster Hunter World, meaning Monster Hunter Rise wins. But does it really? Unpack why Rise can stand where it is currently. Rise is in the state it is now because Monster Hunter World pioneered so much in both audience appeal and gameplay. World popularized the Monster Hunter franchise with the Western audience. It also brought the Monster Hunter concept out of the handheld hell that was the 3DS and onto more powerful consoles. It was a pioneering title that enabled other games to be built upon. Monster Hunter Rise is just the next logical step, taking all the combat innovations from World and Iceborne and packaging it into a new title. This isn't to marginalize how good Rise is, but to respectfully pay tribute to its predecessor. It makes me happy that Capcom has continued to play with the Monster Hunter formula and continuously release these games in a way that is fresh and fun. But Capcom, please quit letting greatsword players into the storyboard room. They lack the required wrinkles on their gray matter to tell a cohesive narrative. If you made it to the end of the video, you're amazing. Leave me your opinions in the comments below, and if you convince me I'm wrong, you will get the pleasure of watching me admit defeat. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe while you're down there for more Monster Hunter analysis videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.